So there's a whole lot of people that on that day became my people. That struggle finally united a section of our populace, and we'll never break that bond. That bond will be here forever.
It took another 10 years for the struggle at Bastion Point to be finally over. Most of the 222 protesters arrested that day had the charges of trespass thrown out by the courts. Some 9 years later, the Labour government finally accepted the Waitangi Tribunal's judgment that Bastion Point was indeed Maori land and should be returned to Ngāti Whātua or Ōrākei.
When we had the merger of the Traffic Safety Service and Police, I led a contingent onto the marae here to recognise the joining together of the two organisations, but it was also at that point a point of recognition that it was the first step in the healing process because of what happened in the eviction of the people from Bastion Point.
In some ways it was a good thing, because if the government had never moved to develop that small 12-hectare block, possibly Ngāti Whātua would still be sitting there with a huge sense of grievance which was not being able to be addressed. So it forced a situation where an outcome was achieved.
Now they've got prime downtown land. They have economic infrastructure that they couldn't dream about back in those times. And I think, they're going to make progress slowly towards really seeing the Hapua Ōrākei and Waira Ngāti Whātua whānau benefit significantly because they've stuck to their guns.
The corporate is responsible for looking after a large portfolio of properties. I think if you looked at Ngāti Whātua and what its strategic advantage is, it is that just out the back of its marae, it happens to have the most exclusive real estate in Aotearoa. So in the number of the assets that we've got, the railway site up on the point as well, and a retirement village that's looking pretty exciting. I guess the big transaction was the 100 homes on Cooper Street in Ōrākei, which were previously Housing Corporation block. The most important factor is location, location, location. That's the key to property development, and that's what they've got.
Some New Zealanders think we're sort of giving money to Maori. It's nothing of the sort. We're returning a small part of land where that was wrongly taken. And we then want to make certain that those misunderstandings and talking past each other never happen again.
There have been some partial settlements over the Bastion Point Takapara block, but in terms of the wider claim for Auckland Isthmus that is yet to be settled, the value of it is certainly in excess of the $1 billion fiscal cap that the Crown has basically told us that that is their policy not to go past.
After Joni died, I became very involved in the marae, in the mahi and the marae. I went from strength to strength, actually.
For me personally, it really made me think now, maybe this is not the job for me. Because I didn't know anything about the Treaty of Waitangi. I heard a bit about it. But then that's when I started looking at new challenges. So I left my baton and my handcuff behind and took up the Bible of Christ and went to theological training.
It changed me in a lot of ways in that I became more aware of why things had happened the way they did. As time went by afterwards, our people were being recognised as tangata whenua. They were invited to special occasions that the city had happening, and today they say, well, this is our land, which they wouldn't have said before Bastion Point. They would have thought it, but they wouldn't have been able to say it. Now they can say it. This is our land.
We keep waking up to the fact that our history as was told to us, in my generation and my parents' generation, was a history that was largely warped in relation to Maori and Pākehā relations. We're doing something about that here, and I'm immensely proud that we're doing that. Here's Joe Hawke now, one of the most reviled people in New Zealand by much of the Pākehā population in the late 70s, now a Member of Parliament. Now, Joe stands as one of the people in New Zealand who actually have shown true leadership in this issue, to see the big picture and to see what's important for New Zealand in the future.
This is original Māori Affairs Room, which has hosted a lot of our people in important huis that they have. It's important because, to me, it was in this room, in front of the facsimile of the Treaty of Waitangi in 1837. In 1987, the Labour government finally presented the Urake report of the Waitangi Tribunal as a completed and agreed final handback of the land on Bastion Point. Se Peterbak, se Maui Pomare, se Ruera Tirikatane. We're not as nice as the old politicians used to be. I think they were ultra nice and very British. We've said, right, we're doing it our way, and perhaps our way may work, who's to know?
What strikes me as extraordinary in this whole discussion between Maoris and Pākehās is that for a large part, Pākehās view this process as one of paranoid fear. What has been lost by the return of Bastion Point to Ngāti Whātua? Nothing has been lost, and everything has been gained in matters of honour and in matters of fair dealing.
So 22 acres of land plus houses was returned to Ngāti Whātua ownership, plus a $3 million settlement for the trust board. I mean, $3 million at the time is a puny settlement for 700 acres, considering the value of that land on which elite houses have been built, Paratai Drive and all that. One house alone on Paratai Drive would cost that money, that amount of money.
No longer are we walking down like this, and no longer do you see our kids shuffling their feet and talking about these negative stories, booed ill, and I saw no longer.
The community forgot they had Māori people who were here first, and they chose to hide them, and they still do in some circles. They'd rather we weren't here on the choicest piece of land in Auckland City. And it's up to the people here to hang on, because down the track they'll try again to move us out.
This program was made with the help of your broadcasting fee so that you can see more of New Zealand on air.